We'll wait
Not-
until the red
we're not
light is
live
on.
yet.
Okay.
And there we are. We'll call this budget tour back in order. And joining us now is HR Department for their budget presentation. Lisa, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Junt. I'm the Human Resource Director for the City of Minot, and this is the budget that I'm presenting for my department. Hoping I can get this to work. All right, I'm supposed to aim for the star, apparently.
Not working?
There you
Oh,
Oh,
unless she did it, I don't know.
okay. I thought for the individuals that were running to just give you an overview of what my department was like. We are a service department for city leadership and for the employees. And essentially, the areas that we do provide services in is employee relations, classification and compensation, benefits, talent acquisition, general citywide training, risk management, leave administration, and payroll. I do have 4 individuals in my department. There is myself and 3 generalists, 2 senior generalists, and an HR generalist. 1 senior generalist does oversee most of the benefits administration as well as payroll. The other HR senior generalist is there for mostly with the training and for risk management with regard to WSI. And the third HR generalist is the individual who does most of the recruiting, onboarding, most of the general questions for employees. We do have 460 employees in the city of Minot, so we do payroll for them. And we also have approximately 25 seasonal part-time employees, and then 300 pensioners that we also handle their payroll. Just to give you an overview of what we did this last year with regard to the funding that was provided to us. Again, about 65% of my funding is actually funding for personnel. The other portion, which was the largest portion, was funding that we did for the new implementation for software for the HR department. It's HCM software. That particular software, we did start that process in fall of last year and finally completed the majority of it this year at the beginning of January. We completed the automated tracking and timekeeping and attendance tracking. And then we also provided multiple sessions for trainings. We provided self-service system sessions for our employees. This June or July, we will be implementing the advanced scheduling component for that tracking, for that software. We have also revised the evaluation for employees, so we'll be providing training for that. And then with regard to ACA reports, generally we used to do that all manually with the exception of last year. And this year we were able to do that ACA reporting in the software as well. Another item that was provided last year from the council during the budget process was to approve short-term disability. So we have taken on right now the capacity of doing all the claims for that particular product. And I believe mid-June or the first part of July, we'll be implementing the total leave process packaging to assist us in that. With regard to claims, the HR department actually does handle all the processing of the claims right now, so it has been a little bit time-consuming for us. Just to give you an overview of what that particular product has provided, we did have 17 claims thus far that have been filed by employees, and thus far we've had an approval rate of 100%, so it has been a very good benefit for our employees. 3 or 4 of those employees would not have had enough leave to be able to get them through any of their short-term disabilities for that. This year, we also will be reviewing and analyzing the city retirement benefit. As was pointed out previously, the North Dakota PERS is changing to a defined contribution plan. We just found out a couple days ago that that defined contribution plan is actually Empower, which is a plan that we already have amongst our 6 plans. So I'm a little bit concerned that there's going to be another defined contribution plan with Empower that is going to be sort of confusing for employees that are currently on the other defined contribution plan. We will have to figure out the process for that, and then there will also be training that will have to be implemented for that as well. And then we do maintain the safety program for WSI, do all the tracking for that. And there has been some additional loss pay tracking that we've had to have for that software as well. And then just to let you know what our initiatives are for 2025. Under the council's direction, we are going to be doing a formal salary survey next year. There was council direction to provide that every 3 years. It will provide a full job analysis review and update of the job descriptions. We also need to closely review the salary structure and ask them about recommendations for compression. We do have significant compression issues with our employees. It's sort of difficult when you're working with a structured salary plan because you can't really put a square peg into a round hole by changing it. So there's a lot of difficulties in trying to adjust for that. There's a continuation for revision of the personnel ordinances, especially related to recruitment, which I believe that ordinance has been long outdated and is sort of providing a lengthy time for us to get individuals in the door. Establishing an employee wellness program is another initiative. I believe that also City Manager Stewart will be bringing up as well. Mental health is an important initiative with regard to that for all of our city employees. We found that a lot of our costs associated with increases to our insurance are in that area of mental illness. We will be expanding citywide training. Establishing leadership training has been something I've always wanted to do. We just haven't gotten there. In the last 4 years, it's been very difficult because we've been implementing software for 4 years. So it's been a difficult time trying to put that together. We have started to establish frontline management training for our employees. That has gone very well. I would like to look at developing the city strategic workforce plan. I believe Alderman Padragula has brought that up several times as to initiating something with regard to human capital management as far as a CIP. We will be developing and expanding a new orientation experience for our employees as well. And there was a council direction that they would like to see a formal employee satisfaction survey every few years. So that's something we're hoping to implement as well. And then with regard to CDBG entitlement, and also since we are now an MPO, there's additional requirements for us to monitor the Title VI program. The biggest request that I have for this year is that I am asking for an additional staff member. When I started in the HR department in 2012, there were 327 FTEs. At that time, there were 4 HR staff members. We have since increased our staffing by 40%, yet my department has not increased. We are the smallest department in the state. We are one of the only departments who actually does payroll for that department as well as all the pensioners. And so it is time where I believe we do need to have additional staff in my department, especially considering there's also requests for additional staff for other departments. So as those departments increase in staff, so does our workload. And so with that, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions of Lisa from the council? Anything? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, I think it was last year's budget cycle, we kind of talked about adding an employee in your position. You kind of said, I don't need one. There's going to be efficiencies with the programs. Give us an update. Obviously, we're looking at adding one at this point. Did you not gain the efficiencies you were hoping to? Has it been more cumbersome?
And since that, we've also added on different programs that are requiring more time for my staff. For example, we do have to do loss pay to track the loss pay for individuals on WSI now. We also are doing all the short-term disability claims, which is front-loaded for us from the beginning. So there's been a lot of additional requirements added to my department that aren't provided in the software.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Steve?
Thanks. I had 3 questions. The first is the simplest. One of the things you've been doing is tracking the turnover rate over the years. Where's that at now?
Right now, we're at about 3.8%. So we are trending about where we were at the same time last year.
And that's for the first 4 months of the year?
First 4 months of the year, yeah.
Okay. And what's the trend over the past few years been?
It's been about the same. So I believe a couple of years ago, we were at around 4%, and I think last year was 3.5. I'll have that information when I do my information for the annual plan as well.
So we've managed to deal with the major problem we had some years ago, where it was, what, 12, 14%, I think? We've gone through
Yes,
that. gone through that.
in 2020, I think it was 2020, where we had double-digit figures for
Okay. And you'll be
turnover.
presenting to us information as to what staff are seeing as their desires for enhanced benefits, right?
I'm sorry?
You'll be presenting information as to your survey of what staff is wanting in terms of additional benefits?
Yes.
Just as a brief refresher, one of the things that I remember just kind of subjectively is that the healthcare, family healthcare benefits has been issued. It's unfortunately very costly, but remind me again what the differential is, particularly in the public safety field, because I know that our salaries are reasonably comparable for law enforcement agencies in the community, but the big issue seems to be the family health insurance. And
Okay.
refresh my memory as to what
Every
that's
2
about.
weeks, biweekly, they pay about $150 for family health insurance,
So about $300 a month?
about $300 a month.
Okay, so if you're a police officer with a family, you're $300 to the benefit every month if you work for another agency.
Correct.
Okay, 300, okay. And second question. The second question is, you mentioned that you're looking at some sort of a leadership training program, and that's been kind of near and dear to my heart over the years. Could you give us the status of what the planning process is at this point?
Well, essentially, we don't have a whole lot because we've been working on the middle management portion of the training. I only have one person right now who's very dedicated to that area and has been doing a lot of the implementation and development of that training herself.
And where's the middle management program at?
Middle management would be your foremen, superintendents, that area.
Right, what kind of training are they getting now, and what kind of plans do they have?
General training with regard to HR relations with regard to their employees has been mostly the main portion of it. A lot of understanding of how to work through conflict for their employees has been a major portion of it.
Is there like an established curriculum and waypoints for people's progress?
It has been development by our staff, so there is not an established,
I'm sorry, development by your staff?
meaning my staff have put that training together with other trainings.
Okay, but you don't have a series of modules to cover, do you?
No, we do not.
So what's the nature of the training then?
Staff conflict has been a major one.
Right, but I mean, do you have like a workshop, or do you have a speaker come in, or how do you,
My staff does the training themselves.
oh, so they provide lectures and things?
They provide the training and, exactly.
Okay, and how much of that is there in a year, say, or what's the goal on this one?
Well, I'm hoping there's not a huge amount of staff conflict, but this last year, we've already provided 6 or 7 different sessions for departments who've asked for them.
So there isn't any routine requirement then for middle management people? It's just when a department feels a need for it, an individual asks for it?
Yes, at this point, it's what the individuals have asked for. We have not gotten to a point where we've been able to do full training modules.
Right.
Again, we've just completed implementation for software that we've been doing for several years, so that's taken up a considerable amount of our time.
Right, no, I understand. I mean, it's part of the reason I've not spent a day with your department, because I've just felt so sorry for you and your staff being overworked. I mean, that's the reality. I actually shied away from talking with you. I apologize for that, but I don't want to burden you
We
any
welcome you in.
Right. But I think that's an important issue, I think particularly for new people who want to be on the council, is we don't have any established training programs. I think most businesses of any size have that and see that as a major priority because of the importance of human resources. And that's an area which, again, we just have not had the resources to do.
Correct.
But if you talk with any organizational consultant, and I happen to be an organizational consultant from time to time, that is a top priority for most organizations.
We can certainly outsource them to different
Right.
areas, which we've been able to do, but we would like to bring them in-house.
Right, but and that doesn't matter to me who does it. I think one of the concerns I've had in the past is that sometimes outside companies that come in really aren't sensitive to the public workspace. I know that our consultants that Harold has brought in for the council are experts at that, but sometimes general human relations or HR consultants don't appreciate the difference between the public and private sectors. So I think having our own people do that is probably better in some ways. The second question I had, or third question, whichever one it is now, is we had talked some time ago, some years ago, about employee satisfaction, or lately I think it's morphed into employee engagement surveys. I remember one meeting, we had you and several of your staff and Alderwoman Evans and I, and a couple of professors from Minot State, and we brainstormed some of the alternatives. And they came up with, I think, from my point of view, some very impressive kinds of ideas, and it never went any further. Where are we at with that in terms of developing a formal management training program? Or excuse me, a survey, rather.
Survey, that is one of the items that I put into my budget for this year, additional funding for that.
Using outside people or just?
Yes, using outside people.
Okay. And will you come to us before issuing a request for proposals or something like that?
We certainly can put a committee together. At that point, it hasn't come to
Haven't gone that far.
fruition.
Okay, because like I say, I was really impressed with something that the two Minot State faculty put together, and it would be a way of kind of buying local, which I think is a good idea generally.
Yeah, we had received a few proposals, not only with the Minot State people, but other people who have reached out to us, so we have a general understanding of the cost.
Right, but again, just overwhelmed with work and not the
Well,
resources
we
financially.
just haven't put it in the budget, so
Right,
I'm
right.
asking for it in the budget this year.
How much?
15,000.
3,000, okay. So looking at an objective survey, and part of the reason I think that's important, besides my concern about the functioning and morale of the employee, is that, we've started to reach out to citizens, and we've polled at Harold's initiative, the general public now our second time, and the data have been very useful, including several people sitting here at the table wanting to be here permanently. So I think that's something, if we had, it could be a very significant management tool. And I think 15,000 would be a very, very worthwhile investment. So I'm glad to see that that's being asked for this year. Thank you. And again, my sympathies and my apologies for not being
Again,
more
you're
in
welcome.
tune with
You're
your
welcome to stop in.
organization.
Any other questions from the council? Lisa, just real quickly, when you're comparing to other cities in the state, size-wise, but do other cities in the state, do their HR departments process the payroll? Or is
Only
it-
one other does.
Okay,
Bismarck does.
okay. No questions from the council? Any from the candidates? Steve?
Just one comment I noticed in your last monthly meeting, monthly briefing, you gave us some figures as to how much the new computer system has saved in terms of the time your staff would otherwise spend on processing routine requests that employees now can do on their own, which is really nice to see. Not a whole lot of money, but moving in the right direction, definitely. It makes life easier, I think, not having to deal with the routine stuff if they can do it on their own.
Slowly but surely. And as the managers become more comfortable with that software too, that is something that is self-service for them as well.
Yeah, that's good
So
to see.
that they don't have to send us a piece of paper to try and push something through. They can do that on their own, so.
Thank you.
Anything from the candidates? Nothing. Thank you, Lisa. Move on, can we?
I don't know the answer.
Well, I think if we have the city